stress about it. Yes, that's exactly right. That's what I feel like. I think, all right, you know what? That clearly didn't happen. So now I'm just going to be on the timeline that it is.
Make sure it's on. And
But I am writing up all the infrastructure effects of the element. Jennifer knows it. Oh yes, I actually am. I'm trying to write it enough so that the trees part is a whole separate section that really focuses on ecological benefits, ecosystem benefits.
I don't know what I was doing.
You're a troublemaker, yeah.
We're going to call the meeting to order of the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission. And could we have a city clerk? Can you give us a roll call? Deputy City Clerk.
Commissioner Emerson.
Present.
Commissioner Kershner.
Here.
Commissioner Momsen.
Here.
Commissioner Smull.
Present.
Commissioner Van Wagner.
Here.
Commissioner Knudsen.
Here.
Youth Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Here.
And Chair Schlelein.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're starting really well. Okay. It's been a while since we've all gotten together. So we are now looking at approving the agenda. And I ask for a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
I think we need the motion first.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
A second.
Commissioner Emerson.
Yes.
Commissioner Kershner.
Yes.
Commissioner Momsen.
Yes.
Commissioner Smull.
Yes.
Commissioner Van Wagner.
Yes.
Commissioner Knudsen.
Yes.
Youth Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Chair Schlelein.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
We are now on comments from the public 1.0. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Under state law, the commission cannot discuss or act upon matters presented under this item at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to comment when the item comes up for commission consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the chair, please step to the podium and speak into the microphone. Begin by stating your and spelling your name, please. Cedra?
Okay.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Sedra Nathan, S-E-D-R-A. I'm here really just to share information tonight, and I want to clarify my role because I also serve on the Climate Action Commission, but my comments touch upon things we do, but I'm not here commenting in that capacity. I'm here as someone who's really deeply involved in the general plan process through initiatives like a mapping project called Green Links, and through the efforts led by Valley of the Moon Garden Club and a framework known as, it's a unifying framework known as Green and Blue Infrastructure as part of our planning process. I was drawn to come tonight because I saw that Prose was going to be speaking. I thought, oh, let's just have a lot of cross-pollination of ideas. Let me just share two. So first, let me explain to you what those things are. The overarching goal of Green Links and the broader green and blue infrastructures is three main goals. One is to create an unbroken, accessible network of trails and pathways that connect neighborhoods, schools, healthcare, vital infrastructure, so that everyone has connectivity that's seamless, it's safe for people to travel, for all community members to get anywhere they want to without risking life or limb. And also there's an equity element because we ensure that people from the Springs or people who don't have cars have enjoyable access points into the city. And it's a nested layer element so that ecotourism also can use the same network in a sort of larger and smaller circles, basically, of trails that work together in a cohesive system. The other thing is it enhances community well-being by prioritizing health and safety of our most vulnerable populations. When we did the mapping, we looked at where people live, where accidents were, where they're trying to go. And by integrating green elements with it, it's focused on future-proofing the city, both ecologically and economically, for environmental conditions, climate change, and economic shocks, because arts and tourism really help with that. And then finally, this is a layered, integrated program. So connecting green streets, trails, frankly, arts on trails, into a cohesive, livable community is the end goal here. I mean, people like living in Sonoma. I mean, people like living in their communities, but people love living in Sonoma. This is going to help create that kind of love in perpetuity. And that's the goal. It's a mapping exercise aimed at community health and integration, meeting all the needs of the commission. So that is the goal of this initiative. And Arts on Trails, or arts in pop-up areas, is really important to that. I just came back from Montreal, and they have these things called ruelles vertes, like petite little paths, which delight and entice people. And it was during the summertime, and they had they closed down their streets and had arts on those paths. And so there's a lot of that we can take inspiration from. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sedra. Quick comments from commissioners or questions?
Would blue infrastructure represent water? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sedra is a force, and we've all been blessed to get to know her. And thank you for caring and coming. Next up, we have presentations. And the Parks and Rec and Open Space Commission update from the chair, John Donnelly.
Good evening. Thanks for the invitation to meet with you tonight and to share a little bit about what our Pros Commission has been doing and wants to do, and to identify with you some of the mutual interest and responsibilities we clearly share. And of course, this green and blue infrastructure overlay will be a big part of our overall framework to bring us a number of our commissions together. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Almost a year ago, last December, we invited Connie to come and present to our Pros Commission about what you do. And we learned a lot of what you've been up to, and we really impressed, and I think we're going to learn a lot from you, because we learned about your vision statement to make Sonoma a Sonoma Valley and world-class arts and culture destination. And you've matched this with goals and a cultural planning process, and also some short, medium, and long-term action steps. So if your commission, I don't know how many of you realize this commission, that your commission is 41 years old. It was started in 1983. And our little Pros Commission just started last year. So we still have the training wheels on. We're learning our way forward thanks to the help of our support staff in the city and Public Works. We were started second year, a year ago in January, and it was our first meeting, and we met to get started and learn how we're going to put together this commission and what we might do. So I wanted to share with you some of the history of the PROS Commission. Before 2022, the city had a Community Services and Environmental Commission, and I was on that commission for a year or two. And then we were also working with the Sonoma Valley Climate Coalition and the climate interest in the city, and so the Community Service and Environmental Commission was disbanded and divided into a Climate Action Commission, which Cedra is now on, and then what to do with Parks Recreation. That's what we became the Parks Recreation Open Space Commission. So in 2019, or 2018, we know that Measure M, the sales tax measure, was passed, Parks for All, which added to our budget for supporting parks and recreation in the city. And it passed with giving our city about $160,000 a year for the first 10 years. We're now in the 6th year of that, so we're moving right along through that. And to anticipate that, in 2019, a 15-member community parks and recreation task force was established by the city, and it was chaired by Karen Collins and Steve Page. But unfortunately, the task force, after working several years, resigned in August of 2022, frustrated by a lack of adequate city capacity to support the task force. Now, this was during the pandemic, keep in mind, but also during the same years, these 3 years, the city had 4 turnovers of 4 city managers, and 10 council members changed hands, and the public works staff had ongoing turnover. So there was, on top of the pandemic, there was quite a bit of difficulty, bandwidth, we might say, to meet what the community task force hoped to do. So after they resigned, it's right when, a month or two later, our commission was started up. And so we feel that we inherited the unfinished business of the Community Services and Recreation Task Force. They had a 4-step, multi-step project for the city. And the first was, they did the first 3, and they left us the last 4th. And so that's where I'm leading up to. The first was to inventory the city's parks and recreation, then build a city website, a directory for parks and recreation, which Sarah can talk to, because the website the website software needed a lot of tweaking, and Sarah was very helpful in actually getting that website, a directory of what we currently have in the city on the website. The next step was to basically survey, identify the current parks and budgets, and current parks improvements are underway. The third step was they hired, with the help of Catalyst Fund, a Potrero consulting firm that compared the city of Sonoma to 8 other comparable cities in size to see how they handle their parks and recreation and so forth. And so they did a benchmark study, and this was to identify their common and innovative practices that we might inform the city of Sonoma with its project. The 4th phase, which they didn't get to because they resigned, was a community outreach with community surveys to assess the individual park sites and to identify future projects, visions, and capital investments, and the overall strategic master plan for the park. So we're looking to eventually get a master plan that will incorporate your cultural master plan and also the green and blue infrastructure plan and the general plan. So all these plans could really begin to work together, we hope. Just in highlight, when the Potrero group that studied the other 8 cities, we found was that the Sonoma does not have, unlike the others, does not have a centralized parks and recreation department. It does not have a parks master's plan. And instead, what we do have is basically a hybrid model. In addition to this public works that staffs the parks department, we have a number of nonprofits with the Boys and Girls Club, the Vintage House, and so forth, that are partners of the city. Sonoma Ecology Center, you know some of those now. And so we have this sort of hybrid model. And so in September of 2023, just a year ago roughly, The new city manager, David Guin, it's wonderful to have him on board now, as we all know. He came to our pros meeting and said that he wanted to work on establishing a city parks and rec department. And so he was going to work to create a sales tax measure on the ballot, which was just this November, Measure T, which I'm sure we all voted for. It passed, and so we now are in a good position to move forward to develop a parks director position and some staff support. And so those plans are underway. I just met with him this morning, and he's hoping that we can announce a search for, define a position and search for a director starting in January into March, with the idea, if it all goes well, we could have somebody here in June, but it may not go that well because searches take long and get interrupted. But certainly this year, we're hoping to see that we'll have a Parks and Rec director supporting the Pros Commission. And that will give us an opportunity to then begin to follow the model of your commission, what you've established, and helping us become more proactive as a commission, establish a vision and some goals and specific work plans for how we're going to contribute to the city's Parks and Rec department. So we want to work with developing a master plan. And so finally we're looking forward to more collaboration and working with you, because you can see that we obviously have some overlapping areas where I'm sure you have a lot of public arts and cultural activities you'd like to put in the parks and new park spaces. And we want to work with you on that, as well as the new spaces that would be developed by the green and blue infrastructure plan. And so let me see if I just about finished here, I think, and see if you have any questions. The other thing I was happy to report is that Cedra and I have talked about, I forgot to mention that the Pros Commission is the city's tree commission, and we've been working mostly on vetting homeowners' applications to remove trees from street-facing areas and go through a process for approval. But we've also been trying to work, especially with Cedra, on the city developing an urban forest management plan to increase the trees' canopy. So this brings together the Climate Action Commission. We want trees for carbon sequestration, but we also want trees for parks and heat island effects and aesthetics and so forth. And so we've been working with the tree, and so we work with cross purposes on this. And so we've been talking about many times, I think you're aware of this, that some of these commissions, we tend to work in silos, and we suddenly realize that something we've been working on is occurring in another commission as well, if not several. So we talked to David Guin this morning, and he's agreed that starting in January, we'll have monthly meetings with the chairs of the commissions, with David and the mayor, which will be Patricia, for our Revis, and that will help us have a better sense of communication and how we can overlap and collaborate and also save each other extra time if we're working with a separate kind of silo effect. So that's pretty much where we're going, and we're on the threshold after 2 years of getting up to speed and learning how to move forward. We appreciate your work and all you're doing, and the model that you provide to us. It's really amazing to look through your plan and vision and goals, and also to be working with Cedra. So any questions or suggestions?
I've just had a ball working with these two and having coffee with them and talking about what can be if commissions start to work together. And especially as we have been mapping the city and looking at public art policy, it's obvious that the stars are aligned and that the city is ready to go to a different level. We have a great city manager who has vision, and a upcoming mayor that will be that is excited as well. So and combining the environment and the arts is something that I think is near and dear to our hearts, and the urban treescapes and that sort of thing just resonates. So thank you for all your work and your openness and your inclusiveness, and Well, you gave us some exciting things tonight. The new parks position and monthly meetings of chairs and commissions. It's been sort of a dream for us. Other commissioners, thoughts, comments?
Arts and parks are my two favorite things, so I'm happy to see the silos dismantling a little.
Any questions? Thank you. That's wonderful. We're on to the consent calendar. We are receiving the minutes that Monique has prepared for us. I think we may need a motion to accept. Do I have someone?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Commissioner Emerson? Commissioner Kershner?
Yes.
Commissioner Momsen?
Yes.
Commissioner Smull?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Wagner?
Yes.
Vice Chair Knudsen?
Yes.
Youth Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Chair Schlelein?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. We are on to the regular calendar 4.0, actually 4.1, selection of the 2025 Treasure Artist and discussion regarding the Treasure Artist reception. There is a recommendation to, we need to start the discussion currently, and I think we have a staff report first.
Indeed you do. Good evening, everybody. It's an exciting time of year, selecting a treasure artist tonight, and then also hopefully forming an ad hoc committee if you choose to do so, to help in the planning and execution of the annual reception that we hold in honor of said treasure artist. So I thought we would just do a little short review of the treasure artist program and also kind of what we're expecting tonight. We have a new member among others, so always good to do some refreshing here. This one. There we go. Look at me. Our treasure artists. As John Donnelly mentioned, this body has been together for 41 years, and we've had a number of treasure artists pictured there. It's really a wonderful collection of community members that have been bestowed the honor of treasure artist. The treasure artist of the year recognizes an artist from Sonoma Valley for their community involvement, contributions, not just artistically, but also within the community and other ways there are the criteria. So it's really a community recognition of an artist. So as you see, there's some criteria, creative contributions, as well as their influence and service to the community. And as you all know, you as a body are the managers of this program. So the nomination and selection process, there's a call for nominations generally in September. This year it was September 8th. Then it closed this year on October 31st. It generally happens before the November meeting. We typically have a November meeting for this body where the treasure artist is selected, so with enough time to be able to review those and collect all the nominations. And this year that was, like I mentioned, on Halloween. So this year we received a number of amazing nominations. We have 6 there that you can see, and a number of them received more than one nomination. And we also included this year for you, which you got was a scoring rubric, which was optional for you to use to help with your determinations of who you should believe would be the next treasure artist if you chose to do so. The nominations, there's a little QR code on there, but the nominations are available on a Google Drive. Anybody in the public can access those through the agenda if they would like to see all those wonderful nominations and all the wonderful things that people had to say about these amazing artists. Then a little bit about the treasure artist reception. We have some pictures there from last year of the treasure artist reception that we held for Victor Farrar at El Verano School. The purpose of the reception is to honor the treasure artist. They are presented with their key to the city and a certificate, often by the mayor. There's often other local elected officials who also come and recognize them. So often our supervisors, sometimes our assembly members, and so on, which is really wonderful. There is a budget for that of $2,500. Wow, maybe I'm just putting it into the universe. Right? You got to dream it first. Is allocated for the reception. I just want to remind this body that last year was the first year we did waive any ticket price for people to attend, which was really wonderful community event. However, in past years when we have had that, it has offset the cost so that that money or any additional funds that are raised either through sponsorships or ticket sales or however that money comes through can be used for additional Student Creative Artist Award funds to be able to give out more awards. So it's a little bit of a weighing there. In past years, an ad hoc committee, which is a committee that is formed with less than a quorum of this body, so they can meet without having a public meeting, helps with the planning of that event. And I think they did a great job last year. And so without further ado, we're going to be asking two things of you this evening. The first is the selection of the 2025 Treasure Artist. So you will discuss amongst yourselves. Maybe you choose to look at each artist and just talk about them before voicing your decisions, or maybe you go right into it. That is your decision. And then you will hopefully select a recipient. After that is done, then we will talk about the formation of an ad hoc. You'll discuss whether you'd like to do that still for the planning, and then if you choose to do so, we will select those members. And if there's any questions or any additional comments, I'd be happy to answer them.
If we didn't have an ad hoc committee, who would plan the event?
I believe staff.
So this is always the hard part because there's so many wonderful nominees. I think all very deserving people that have done quite excellent work, and it's heartwarming to see the nominations. Just because a nominee had 20 or 12 nominations doesn't mean that's a vote, and I'd like you to keep that in mind because we're really looking at quite a few things on the criteria. We looked at exceptional artistic achievement, significant contributions to Sonoma Valley, to the community, a legacy of artistic excellence in the community, and we needed to be able to see their work. And I, for one, had problems with one of the nominees that I couldn't find any photos, video, so I think they might need to be disqualified. Do you have a recommendation, staff, for that?
I don't. Was it just a link that didn't work, or no artwork was?
Journey, and there was no artwork submitted with the nomination. May have been some kind of technical problem.
Why don't you start discussions and I'll just look into it a little bit.
Okay, that'd be great. So any advice on how you want to handle this? Are you okay to just go ahead and vote right away, or do you want to go through each nominee?
I think with the amount of time that people have put into this process, and I hope that we've all reviewed everyone, it would probably make sense to speak about each one. And then we can talk about who, if anyone has a particular favorite or favorites.
Great, thanks, Deb. Someone want to bring forth a discussion on one of their favorites?
I'll start. It was Margaret Hatcher, or just the M. Hatcher? With the costume design and trash and fashion and everything, I think that in the arts, sometimes some of those different art forms can get lost. And just as Victor last year with his art, I really enjoyed learning about her too, because I've actually never, unfortunately, attended. I always wanted to, and I've heard great things, but also just reading the submissions. And when I read through these two, I really try to stay true to what the person's saying about them instead of obviously my own opinion or do I know them. So reading through what everyone's mentioned about her impact in the community in this event, I was really proud to have her here in Sonoma.
Thank you, Meredith. Others? Deb?
I would just echo that I was so impressed. Some of the nominators had links that they would put, and some it was more conversational. One of the links, I think it was through maybe the Sonoma magazine or Sonoma newspaper or whatever, but to see the work that she has done, and it says she was nominated last year. I don't recall seeing those specific works of art, but it was beautiful and breathtaking. It was just really incredible.
I agree. I thought she had a very strong contribution to the community. Not only was her own artwork just incredible, but a huge contribution to the community. And I know we're not saying if you have more nominations, you're more likely, but I do think it speaks to how many people she's impacted, that many people nominated her. And not only with Trash and Fashion, but the Dia de los Muertos that they do at the community center, the Muse art show, she was part of that. So it wasn't just the Trash and Fashion. She's on the community center board. Is that or
Yes.
Used to be? So a lot of other contributions. But yeah, I think both in artistic quality and in contribution, she was very high scoring if you were using the rubric.
Other comments?
Can you hear that okay? Yeah. I was just super surprised and delighted to see this nomination come across. It was the first one I opened, and I was like, fashion design. We haven't had a nomination in that realm, I think, before. And when I first moved to Sonoma, and I heard of Trash and Fashion, I've also never had the opportunity to go. We should go as like a group. It's kind of a fun, like, silly thing. But then, the more I've heard about it and seen the impact in the community, it's very far-reaching, actually. Like, my kids are very into it. Emma, like, is into fashion now. Like, she creates pieces of art, fashion pieces of art because the inspiration it's had on her. So she's at the top of my list for sure.
Okay, so echo a little bit about what's been said already, but I look at the contribution not only of the art itself, but also the inclusion of the contributions to the community, i.e. mentoring. And it seems like Margaret's been really generous with her time, helping all kinds of folks, reach their goals in whatever endeavor it is related to the art that she's very good at creating. Also, I think what's interesting about her is the longevity that she's had in pursuing her passion. So this just isn't something that she's been dabbling with. I mean, she's very serious. And I've seen her out in the community and a lot of the work, the live art that she's created, and the smiles that it's brought to people that are, in the square and around the community. So, I mean, she is exceptional at what she does. The calendar that she mentioned is absolutely amazing. So anyway, I just wanted to add those comments. Yeah.
Ryan, thoughts?
Yes. No, she's put together something really special, and like you'd mentioned, as soon as I have been up in Sonoma now, 12, 13 years, and it was. Yeah, that one has always just had this community impact. You'll see people's works starting to show up in store windows, and all ages of folks that are getting involved in that. It's a pretty cool thing she's built. So I was thrilled to see her name on the list.
To touch on the ages, it's like one of the only community arts events where I see children a part of it, which is really important to me as like a teacher.
Maggie, thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything being said. Like looking through the names, she was one of the names that I actually recognized because being in Sonoma all my life, I know what she's put out into the community. So that was really nice.
I have for years been surprised that she wasn't a treasure artist. She's the most humble person I think I've met. Someone had to point her out to me once that she'd started the fiber, or really helped the Fibers program become what it is at the community center. She'd done the ARTS programs. She's done just the myriad of things. And then even just going to the lighted arts, the lighting of the plaza and those lighted women that came out of nowhere and just blew everyone away it's just astonishing what she does. And she's so, she's a singer. She sings at the community center and at Tiddlywinks, and she participates a lot in Art Walk. She's very community minded, and yet kind of this silent presence behind just kind of magically making things happen. She's, for me, an easy choice, although I admire greatly what Tommy Thompson has done in this community. I think he has built community, and his story is, and going to the events when they were fundraising for him, and the heartwarming community action that came out of his needing a liver transplant, which they talk about in those articles. And I know a lot of people are really pulling for him for Treasure Artist. Margaret, I think I've been on the commission for 4 years maybe, and she's been nominated several times and never received it. But I think they did a bang-up job on the nomination this time. And we could actually see what she has crafted and what she has, her fibers, she's woven into the community what she is doing, and it's pretty cool. So I'm pretty convinced that she was top in my rubric. Other discussions about other candidates, or Deb, do you want to say something?
I think she's such a strong candidate, Margaret, that it's not meant to think that the other candidates were not worthy. But she was my top candidate as well, and my guess is she's probably many people's top candidate.
I think on some of the others too, I felt like they were lacking some information. Should be more descriptive of their contributions towards community instead of just the art portfolio. So I was left sort of wanting to hear more. So it's not that they may not be up there with Margaret, but I sort of just left wanting to learn more about them.
Yeah, I agreed on that one. I noticed Kirk Hinshaw's name on there, and we have a print of his in the house. It's like, oh, cool. That's pretty neat. But there wasn't that community building kind of tour de force of Margaret's thing. Also, as a guitar player, having Tommy Thompson on there was pretty cool. So, but sorry, bud.
I thought all of them were very strong. I mean, their artwork is Candy's. I know Jerry's work personally, and she's an exceptional artist. Kirk, the collage work he does is really exciting. What Rod Marymore has done with Music in Place, I'm involved, and so I would have to exclude myself. I'm a volunteer in that organization, but he's been like a rocket ship in this organization, in this community, creating basically a living room at the amphitheater every Sunday afternoon for now coming up 25 weeks this next summer. So they're all extremely deserving. Tommy Thompson, of course, but the legacy and the depth and breadth that I think Margaret brings is hard to argue. This may be the fastest decision we've ever made as a commission. Deb?
I couldn't help but think when I was reading there, it was actually the Sonoma Tribune that I saw those beautiful costumes. I was wondering, what will she bring to the 4th of July parade?
I think we're ready for a roll call.
If we can get
We
a
need
motion and a second.
and a second, and then I think we're ready. Motion?
I motion to select Margaret Hatcher as the 2025 Treasure Artist.
Second.
Commissioner Emerson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kershner,
Yes.
Commissioner Momsen,
Yes.
Commissioner Smull,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Wagner,
Absolutely.
Vice Chair Knudsen,
Yes.
Youth Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Chair Schlelein.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Yay! And the question is, how do we contact her?
So we do have contact information. All nominees were sent an email early on to let them know that they had been nominated, so hopefully it won't be too, just aren't totally out of the blue as they were made aware of this meeting. So I think, last year, Chair Schlelein, you called the day after. We do have that contact information. If you so choose to do that, we would be happy to help you do that, or if you'd prefer staff to, we could do that as well.
Is it possible that after the commission, we could all call her?
I believe so. I think we have her phone number available.
I
We
think
do.
that'd be fun.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, all right. Deb?
Just had two things. One, last year we were unanimous, and this year we were unanimous. And I would chalk that up to, one, the quality of the nominations and the work that people put into making these very strong candidates, but also your work, Connie, in doing a rubric and really getting all of us thinking about what's important to, like, what does the treasure artist mean? So thank you for providing that leadership and guidance, and it makes us a super happy, pleasant process in who we select. And then secondly, I had a question about, I know we usually ask the treasure artists, like, when would they like to have their reception, but given kind of the scheduling difficulties of even trying to schedule meetings, I didn't know if it was proper for us to try to suggest a few dates as a body and then let them select. And if it's not one of those, that's fine, but at least we would have some common to make sure that we have the masses available.
There is no reason we can't do that. So as part of your discussion, if you would like to discuss the formation of the ad hoc, and if you would like to select a few dates to start from as potential dates for a reception, that would both be appropriate.
I would like to suggest we think about it when we're looking at the calendar, and that part of the agenda. I think that would really help. And I also would like to give kudos to Sarah and Monique for making the website and I had handouts. I ran around Music in Place and all kinds of community center and the museum, handing them out. Everybody wanted them. We had good nomination. We had a robust process, and then you giving us slideshows and that sort of thing is just, it's the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. You guys, thank you. So next, ad hoc committee. Do we have folks that want to be on that? I think it might be a really fun time this time.
Can you talk about the commitment of this time? I love costumes, and so I could imagine a really great party.
I think it's kind of as much time as you want. Actually, I can only speak to 1 year since I've only was part of it from last year, so I can speak from that experience. I think it varies depending on how much planning is needed. Last year, I think because we did have a, not unusual, but atypical for the city hosting it at a school site and having a treasure artist who had a very robust, wanted to have a show, and there were a lot of components, so there were a few moving parts, but I don't know. I'm going to have to ask the ad hoc members because my staff memory of what I did versus what the commitment was from the ad hoc was different. So I know Lauren and Deb were on that. If you want to speak to that, I would be grateful.
It's pretty streamlined. I mean, we met once and then we kind of divvied up the tasks and, had to do some things on the side. And then I think we met one more time and then it was pretty much the event. I mean, there were some emails that went back and forth. That was a little complicated last year, but that's not too horrible. I work in the events industry, so I kind of help plan in. Make it as painless as possible.
And Morgan did a great job of decorating. I missed a step because we need a motion to create an ad hoc committee. We haven't done that yet.
We can create the ad hoc and add the members all in one motion. So once you determine the members, we can do a motion for everything.
Okay, great. And we need 3 people?
That's
Three
correct.
commissioners, which could include the youth commissioner. Okay.
I'd be happy to be on it.
I'd be happy to volunteer again, too.
My husband would kill me, but one more volunteering thing that I'm going to do. It depends on timing. I'm going to be gone for a few months, and so the timing creates
I could be your
problem.
backup. Yeah.
I saw somebody.
I'm also willing, but I was on the last one, so I just feel like I'm trying to let other people have a turn.
Why don't we let Scott be on this? My backup. You said you were my backup.
Yeah.
That
I
also,
did.
That makes my house a lot happier.
Make your husband happier, yeah.
Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have a party. Great. So now we need a motion. And we need the motion to include the ad hoc members.
I will make a motion to have Scott, Lauren, and Meredith and Connie. No? Okay. I make a motion to have Scott, Lauren, and Meredith be the ad hoc committee for the treasure artist reception.
Second. Commissioner Emerson.
Yes.
Commissioner Kershner.
Yes.
Commissioner Momsen.
Yes.
Commissioner Smull.
Yes.
Commissioner Van Wagner.
Yes.
Vice Chair Knudsen.
Yes.
Youth Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Chair Schlelein.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
thank you. We now are on to 4.3. Oh, no, 4.2, public art policy. We need to have the staff give a report.
Me again. Thank you all. This is an exciting item to bring to you today. I think we all, the ad hoc and myself, have done some work on this and could be a really exciting step for public art in Sonoma. So let me start. How did we get here? Why are we doing a art policy update? We have a public art policy that was adopted in 2008. That's a little while ago. It has been seldom used. And in 2017, when the Sonoma Valley Museum of Art approached the city to have the Paley installations, this is the picture there of it being installed by the Rose Garden, it highlighted the fact that the city's public art policy does not include temporary art. And discussions about how we might come up with a process, because this went through a different process, thank you, went through a process of which our special events coordinator actually brought it through from a plaza use permit, some other avenues. It was not a direct way. The commission was involved, but it wasn't part of the public art policy as it is in other communities. This was installed in June of 2017. Most of you will remember in October of 2017, we had the October fires. In 2019, we had power outages, fires, COVID. A lot of things got in the way of this idea of updating the policy to include temporary art. Just seemed like it was never the time. Until the magical day last November in 2023 when an ad hoc was formed to do a review of the policy and to make recommendations and updates to the policy, with some of the primary intent being to certainly add temporary art. That was the main initial reason why it was looked at, but also to enhance flexibility so that we may build a program that could really do some amazing things in this community, and also tie it back to the Public Art Fund, which is associated with the policy. So just a little background, kind of a little Public Policy 101. I've gotten a great education through this process, and I'd like to share some of that with you. So what is a policy? A policy, it's a set of principles, it's guidelines to achieve goals, in our case community goals, mostly community goals. And it's a framework for our decision making. It's an allocation of resources, both staff and otherwise. There's lots of different kinds of resources, as you will see. The public art policy will be a foundation. You really have, there's kind of a lot that works in together. You have policies, a plan, and a program typically. So other things like ordinances, our municipal code, they are all attached to our policy. Those things we are going to have to look at as well. If we do approve this policy, there will be some updates needed probably in those arenas. Other pieces that are missing for us is a public arts master plan. Now, our process, we went a little bit backwards. You know, in Sonoma, we don't like to do anything like everybody else does. So a lot of communities, what they do is they start with a large public master plan process, right? So it's a process similar to kind of our general plan, if you think of that, where there's community workshops and you really have a lot of stakeholder input. It's really the opportunity to kind of have your large vision. And so you have this plan, which is really up kind of higher. It doesn't get really down into the minutia. So you have this big overarching plan that has a vision and goals, and then you take that plan, and that's when usually you get all the input. Then staff gets the plan and says, okay, now I'm taking this and using this as my guide to create a policy and a program that fit into this larger plan. We don't have one of those. We had a policy that wasn't really well used, that with some very small updates, which turned out to be maybe a little more in depth than we envisioned, could be really useful as as a first step, with the hope that eventually we will also have this larger master plan and program. Now we're going to go a little backwards around it. So the policy is kind of a little bit of the dry, boring governmental procedure reading. It's not as nuanced as like the program pieces will be, which includes, you know, the application process. How will someone put that in? What are thresholds? How will that come to the commission? What will that look like? When will you consider it? At what level does staff, what level staff gets to look through those things and determine what makes it to the commission? Is it part of a program? All of these things are going to be part of the discussion. This is like the first piece in a much larger puzzle. Including all these kind of items that are called toolbox items, which is, I know Connie has been discussing, but things like that were brought up with the Green Links program, for example, where there's talk about maps, about we'd have site maps, so we'd have things already laid out, potential sites where public art could be. They might include other kinds of guidelines, resources, educational materials. There's all sorts of things that could be in this toolbox that would make the program really strong and easier for people to navigate, and for more public art to be able to get well in front of the eyes of people, but also to the commission through third parties or otherwise that might want to participate. So I'm not going to go over these all one by one. I'll let you read them if you really want to. But generally, these are kind of some of the key updates. There were a lot of little updates. There was a lot of need there. We had a very outdated policy. It was basically in 2008. The vision, the reason it was made was the envisionment of it was you have a big project. The city's building a building. We haven't done that in a while. You're building a building. You're building a new building. And 1% of if of the construction costs of that building would go towards public art on site for that development. I think initially when I was reading back, doing some of the review of that, reading through the notes from the city council meetings actually at the time, I think originally the 1% was not as restrictive. Right now it's just for city projects. It was originally, I think, recommended to be for more larger scale development in the private sector. So it did get narrowed a little bit, and because of that, hasn't been well used, because we haven't had a lot of city projects. There hasn't been that 1% of funding going into the public art fund, nor has it been incorporated into any buildings. I did find some evidence that I think when the library was built, there was some discussion, but I can't quite figure out why that didn't kind of come to fruition. So the biggest part for us was certainly adding in that temporary art and trying to take a different perspective, which did necessitate a little more editing than initially thought, because once you add temporary art and you're not writing from the perspective of this is only going to be in developed projects, specifically, you're always going to have, you know, the on-site architect and you have all these people. That's not necessary for things like temporary art, so it does necessarily change some of those items. So the scope of the art installations, for example, obviously add temporary art. Use of the public art fund adds, now you can include the temporary art. Maintenance, you have to think about maintenance when you're thinking of temporary art. It's different than permanent art. As is site selection, you can do different things. People might be more willing to have temporary art piece somewhere where they wouldn't necessarily be willing to put a permanent piece. Roles and responsibilities, that also changes, because for a small installation, you maybe don't have to have quite as much involvement of people, and vice versa. And also community engagement. There wasn't a lot of community engagement written into the last policy. This one has even just having meetings and whatnot, and opportunities for public engagement and educational materials, etc. is different. So why should we update the policy? I mean, if you weren't convinced by my earlier statements. One of the main reasons for this is we really are looking to expand opportunities, and this just isn't a temporary versus permanent art discussion. This is also the Haley exhibit was wonderful, and the Museum of Art has brought some really interesting exhibits to the plaza, but they are a well-sourced, resourced organization that has a lot of resources, not necessarily just financial, but knowledge based and all of that. And so it occurs to them, and they're able to organize these things on their own. But maybe smaller organizations or individual artists or smaller pieces might not have that same capacity. So we will be developing a program around this policy. It will give us the opportunity to make it more accessible. It also makes the process more transparent, and not necessarily the policy before wasn't transparent, but I think some community feedback from when we had some of the other temporary art installations was that they didn't feel it was transparent, because we don't have a process currently for taking those. So this would allow to kind of answer some of those questions. It helps with usability. It's very practical. From an internal side, it's very helpful. As we heard, we had a lot of turnover at one point in the city, and when you do, and everybody we have this kind of way of processing things, and it's not explicit in a policy whose responsibility it is, it gets really complicated. People say oh, that's not me though, but that's not me, or maybe that's not how everybody's doing different things. It gets a little complicated. So this will hopefully help smooth that out. It'll make us prepared for those types of requests. I know that there are people and organizations in this community that would love to do more. We just haven't had a process or a capacity to do that, so this will hopefully open that opportunity. And then a broader community impact. We are really hoping that this increases the variety, not just of the artwork, but of the people who are participating in it, and artists, and all of the things, as we've talked about, utility box wraps and all those things could fit very easily in here, and there's just really a lot of opportunity out there. It's a little bit mind-blowing to try to think about it. So just a few notes, consideration of future changes. I chose this picture for this slide because none of us could have seen what was coming that led to this particular installation. This was done by the Arts Task Force that was created during COVID. It was part of the Heart of Sonoma, get it, Heart, where artists made these hearts that were installed on the plaza lawn. Again, we didn't have a policy to help us with this. We went through a very interesting way to try to get this installed on the plaza because there's no program or it's atypical to do that. But we did make it happen, but it would be easier if we had a policy like this. But this is also to say that you do not know what is coming. You do not know what art is going to do. You don't know what the community appetite's going to be. You don't know any of those things. And so this is considered, in my mind, as most policies can be, it's a living document. Not so much that you can change it like just whenever you want. There's a process to do that. We do have scheduled reviews in there every 3 years that we should at least review it, see if there's any changes, but it can be brought forward at any time, say, wow, this really isn't working, or say we get a different funding mechanisms or whatever that is, that we can then bring it for changes. So it's not set in stone. Just wanted to also make a note about the recommended expansion of funding that was mentioned in the staff report. Excuse me. One of the recommendations from the ad hoc was to expand that 1% of development or construction fees that is currently only for city projects, to expand that to non-residential development. Anything over $250,000, 1% of that would go into the public art fund for use for public art projects. Now, there's a little more nuance to that because if it's part of a development, they would have an opportunity to incorporate art on site in lieu of putting the fee in, but that would be an option. That originally we were thinking it would come to you for consideration at this time, but we just are kind of lucked out. The city is doing a fee study because doing any sort of new fee takes a lot of work and resources to make sure that it goes through its vetting process, and we happen to be undergoing that right now. So that is being included in that fee study, and City Council will consider it with all of the fees, and it's a lot of fees we're talking about. So it's going to be, I don't recall what the timeline is, but I know I was in several meetings about it today, so it is underway. Also, flexibility for growth. Again, we don't know where we're going. We just discussed having maybe a Parks and Rec department that is going to be formed in our small town way. But there's just a lot of opportunity. We want to make sure that we give as much flexibility to whoever is the steward of the policy to be able to develop a program that suits the community as it grows. So just to kind of let you know where we are in the scheme of things. So we are at that first check. The commission reviews and recommends adoption, hopefully. Once it is recommended by this body, it will be put on a future agenda for City Council for their consideration. If they approve it, then staff would get to work and have to build a few pieces of that program to implement the new guidelines and develop the processes to do this. And then, of course, we would just continue all the good work we're doing on those other components like the toolbox and maybe even looking at future plans of developing a master plan. But that would all be, it's all a little hypothetical right now, but we can dream. So just as a reminder, the recommended commission action tonight from staff is to approve recommending the draft public art policy for adoption by the City Council. There are some alternative actions that are important to note. So it's also very possible you can approve the draft with amendments. So you can agree if someone makes a motion, I agree to approve with the change to this section for this word, or to direct staff to make sure that this is legal or what have you, that you can do that and approve it. It won't slow down the process when we will ensure that those changes are made for council. Or you could postpone approval and request further revisions or additional information. And before I head on, these are just a few pictures of some of the artwork that I had in my files. Before we go to questions and discussion, I would like to hand it over to our ad hoc members to add anything to the benefit of this item, and I'm sure there are some holes that would be well fleshed out by you. So I turn it over to Connie, Meredith, and Lauren.
We've worked a year on this, and it's been great. Our team's been very solid, very committed, and it's been tedious, to say the least. I think policy is wonky, and it's hard to put on my glasses and continue to read this and try to find what we're not thinking of But we had something to start with, so that helped. We didn't have to come up with all this on our own. Many times we got into the discussion about wanting a master plan instead of this policy. But we realized we needed to start with the refinement because this is useful. We can use this. And I think we're now at a transformational moment. We have, as you heard, commissions that are pulling for us, and the community is pretty excited about it, but wanting some action, as well as we have a city manager that is, from the start, said go, and a city council that is waiting and ready. And so I feel this is our moment. We did receive a few comments from Linda Keaton, who is an expert art dealer, and she was concerned about a couple of small things that are in it about artist rights and the rights of who owns the artwork, because as you look over the history of it's called the California Art Preservation Act and the Visual Artists' Right Act. There's been a long history of legal issues around who owns the art, even though the city owns the art. The artist actually still has some place in it. So we very hurriedly tried to work with the lawyers today, and it may not quite be perfect, but it's, I think it's a living document, and I think it's probably fine if we just are careful with our wording. We want to protect the city at this point.
Just a quick note on that too is when with the contracts and stuff, because that would be the document that they would probably go by. So if it's not perfect in the policy, but I agree, and I appreciate Linda looking at that. I'm really excited about this. So when I think about Sonoma and the wonderful art that we do have, all the artists, and raising my daughter here, it excites me that we get to possibly have some temporary art pop-up installations to take her to and see kids grow up around. It's so important for our community. So thanks for working on this. I don't really have any other feedback. The one thing we did come across a lot of was we were talking about the program versus policy, and that's what we really got held up at the beginning is that we don't currently have a program and we were writing a policy for a program. So we had to step back and really envision what this program could look like. That was really exciting as well.
It was a long process, but definitely very important to have a nice foundation on which to grow the arts program in Sonoma. We studied a lot of other cities that are doing a really great job in this realm, and I think we just got very excited about all the possibilities of what Sonoma can look like too. So yeah, onward with the policy and then the plan, I think.
I think the mention of the toolbox is exciting to me too. We got into a little discussion today. Linda Keaton again talked a little bit about how to care for artwork, and I think that could be in the toolbox as I was thinking about it, where we have some maintenance schedules and plans and have some advice. Even cleaning sometimes becomes a problem with permanent art. Temporary art I think is different. And I also think that Meredith has just been an enormous contribution, as has Lauren, but Meredith's got the nuts and bolts that none of us had. And her work in Napa, when you walk around Napa and you look at those temporary pieces and how affordable it is and how it benefits the artists because they want to sell those pieces, so they're on display. We could be filling this community fairly quickly with temporary sculptures and public art, even though we have a very tiny budget right now. So that's pretty exciting. When I lived in Vail, one of the things that Vail did that was really pretty cool was they hired an artist named Patrick Doherty, and he's a world famous installation artist, much like Andy Goldsworthy. And he brought the whole community together. He's done this all over the world. And they took twigs and willows and they created a sculpture by the Eagle River. Every person from the trailer park ski area workers to the city council were building these giant creations. They did it in front of, they've also recreated it. If you go to Honolulu, there's one in front of the Honolulu Art Museum. And it became a happening that the community actually was engaged in. When we have a temporary art policy and we don't have a 20-year or longer life of something, it allows you to play. And as you bring it really changed that elite community of Vail into something really pretty cool. And then I was there several years afterwards when they were talking about it, and very proud of it. So there's so many things we can do, from rotating art to all sorts of things. And with the city being open to increasing the fee structure so that we could perhaps find a way to actually fund art, I think it's important. The thing I love about temporary art, and I wasn't so excited about it to begin with because I'm from a community that, Loveland, Colorado, that has multi-millions of dollars worth of art all through the community. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that temporary art is a great on-ramp for a community to get used to having art in different places. It also begins to educate people about different types of art from different places. It supports local artists, but it also can bring in worldwide famous artists. And our community is fairly traditional in how we view art. We can test drive things. And so I think we're at a transformational moment, and I'm really excited about this commission, and I'm excited about the city staff, and I'm excited about the councils just cheering us on. I think I'm hearing it constantly, and I think we got something here. So, other comments, and then maybe we can take a motion. Deb.
I just wanted to thank you all really for giving your time. I know it was tedious and difficult, and you know, this commission and the city is really lucky to have you guys to push through, so thank you.
I'll second that. That was not an ad hoc I wanted to be on, so thank you guys.
So I think we're ready for public comment. Do we need a public comment? We don't have anyone here to comment. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
I'll motion to approve the draft public art policy for adoption by the city council.
Okay.
I'll
Deb,
second.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Second.
Point of order. Is the motion to accept and then accept any revisions or amendments that may happen?
The options are, if there were items that you felt in this existing document that needed to be changed before they go to city council, that you would do that in the motion at this time.
So I know we have a motion on the table, but
The motion is currently to approve as it is without any additional revisions. Is that right?
I might open the discussion for that. Can I?
Apologies. If you do want to do that, you would need to either withdraw the motion, or the next motion needs to be a substitute motion, just for a point of order.
Okay.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion.
I think I need a little advice on what to do with the legal concerns around the artist rights.
Yes, so I think that we identified that was section 6.4D specifically is the area we're talking about. So if you would like, legal did not have a chance to review it yet in full. But one option, if you would like that to be considered, is that you could give direction, approve with direction to staff to ensure that it is within the appropriate and legal rights, or Commonwealth, however we want to word that.
Do you foresee that stalling this?
I can't say for sure. It's a very small section. So it would, I don't necessarily foresee that. Our city attorney works on a number of really interesting projects, as you might imagine, even for a city, and I'm sure he would have a turnaround. I don't think it would necessarily delay it in any major way, and likely it may be something that is brought up at city council anyway. So if we take care of it now, even better. And maybe we send it to the attorney and they say actually it's fine for this purpose or whatever. So we don't know that it'll necessarily require changes, but that would give me the authority to make those changes and give it to council without your explicit review and approval again. Was that clear?
And as a friendly suggestion to the motion would be I motion to approve the policy as is, with the understanding that staff would go back and speak with legal specifically about section 6.4.d.
So moved.
A second? Any second?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Emerson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kershner,
Yes.
Commissioner Momsen,
Yes.
Commissioner Smull,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Wagner,
Affirmative.
Vice Chair Knudsen,
Yes.
Youth Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Chair Schlelein.
I'm so excited. Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you all for the opportunity. I enjoyed it.
We move on to 4.3 on the agenda. We are looking at calendars, and we will have something on our screen, I believe, with the dates.
Chair Schlelein and Commissioners, every year annually this commission adopts their annual calendar for the next year. So this item we're speaking about next year, 2025. This body meets quarterly. Staff put together just proposed meeting dates for the next year. They are in front of you on the screen. My suggestion would be to go through each quarter, see if it works. If it doesn't, we can look at availability. I do have the calendar in front of me, so we should be able to get through this fairly smoothly. I turn it back over to the Commissioner.
So the January is the first one, January 21st. I will not be here, so I'm hoping our Vice Chair will be. Is the 21st okay with everyone else?
I'm not sure I can make that. But I thought on the calendar there was like a January and a February and a March, which didn't seem quarterly to me.
So I notated the quarterly meetings. I also notated any holidays, so that might be what you're looking at. But there's one in January on the 21st, April 15th, August 12th, and November 18th, with a special meeting proposed for the 22nd of April, just for the Student Creative Student Artist Award interviews. But we can take a look at alternate dates if need be.
Can I ask about the Commissioner's ability to Zoom?
I think I'm not sure that that's allowed unless they have I can't remember.
It needs to be blanking on the actual verbiage, but it needs to be just cause or an emergency that they don't have the ability to be here in person. There's also additional posting requirements, so we would need to, it wouldn't be ideal, but it is a possibility that we would need to look into.
The posting requirements means that you would have to have a public space where you would be Zooming so that any public member could attend the meeting where you are. So you would have to kind of notice it the way the city notices it on our front door, and then wherever you are, you just have to have the door open so that folks would be able to also be there. And I can't remember, sometimes there's been a trouble with that somebody's not going to be there long enough to notice it for as long as it needs to be noticed. I think it's
72 hours.
in advance.
So you will have to post the agenda at whatever location that you're going to be at 72 hours in advance. And as Sarah said, keep the door open. So there's a few different just additional requirements if we need to go down that path.
Thank you. Deb, does that help?
How many commissioners can be absent and still have a quorum?
3.
3.
I also do want to note that this commission can also schedule any additional special meetings if need be throughout the year if the quarterly meetings aren't sufficient enough.
So we have January 21st and April 15th and a possible 22nd as well. And then the rest of them on here are August 12th and November 18th. So 4 meetings. So the 21st works for everyone. Does the 15th? Any problems with the 15th? And then August 12th. And of course, 4th of July, don't forget 4th of July. And then November 18th. So Deb, does that work for you?
Trying to figure out when Good Friday is, so 1 second.
Good Friday is April 18th.
Yeah. So I think I can change some things around and make the January 21st meeting, but I cannot make the April 15th. But if we have the special meeting on, what was that, the 22nd? Sorry, I can't get back up there.
That's correct.
I could make that one. And then I'll be back in town.
Thank you. So it looks like April 15th and 22nd is time for selecting the students' Creative Student Award.
Yeah, that's traditionally when it's been done. I know there had been discussion about trying to move that earlier, but when we looked at the school calendar, unless we were willing to try to do it in February, March is when break is, as well as conferences, and so that's like 2 weeks that it's kind of out. So it felt a little tricky to try to do it before that time. But April is still much earlier than we were doing it, which was like in May or June. So I know that the timing, I feel like we haven't quite hit the sweet spot, but I feel like this year we're going to do it with our timing. But that's provided that the process happens the same as it has in years past, or it did last year, which was relatively smoothly, but it did help to have the 2 days, I found, for people on their schedules.
Deb?
Okay, so the 2 April meetings, even though one says special meeting, we're selecting the student artist at both of those, because I cannot make both of them, so
So last year what we did was we just split the interviews into 2. And last year, again, this doesn't necessarily mean it would be the same this year, but last year, this is something that will come before you to discuss. We allowed the opportunity for interviews to happen both of those days, so we had 2 meetings. And then the decision was made after the final interview on the second interview day, the last interview day. So that in this case, if we did it the same, that would be April 22nd.
So would the 15th be recorded so that Deb could watch it before the 22nd?
Indeed, just like it was last year, which was, I think, was helpful because that did happen last year, that we had a member who was not able to come to the first meeting but was the second.
That was very helpful.
And so that is one of the benefits of doing it in a recorded public session, is that there was that opportunity. And also for commissioners to review those before they go into that next set of interviews.
Maggie, in terms of student portfolio, and you've been through this process, could you give some opinions on dates and also, you know, how that works for you?
Sure. I think the dates in April would be good because, like you were saying, March is a pretty busy month school-wise. And this year, school gets out in May, so I think April would be a good time to do it.
Thank you. Other discussions, calendar, Deb?
I was just questioning the August 12th date. I thought during the summer we tried not to pick Tuesdays just because of Tuesday night market. Is that not true? If I recall.
Mm-hmm.
I can make it, but I know that's something that's been a concern
I see
in the
Monique
past.
looking at the calendar, so she's looking at the room calendar to see what's already scheduled, to see which, if there's any other alternate dates that might work here.
While we're doing that, why don't we talk about treasure artist and the reception? And what might work, or should we simply start with their schedule and have them give us some dates that might work? When did we do it last year? We did it in March, didn't we?
I would have to look up the exact date. We typically have in the past, this again doesn't mean it has to be that way, but because things tend to get busy as the year goes on, technically I think the reception could happen at any time, but just in terms of staff resources and venue availability and that sort of thing, I believe it's been in February or March has been typically when we host those, or try to, along with like the All-Call Day, same thing, usually ends up earlier.
It was March 19th last year.
The date depends on the venue availability as well. So I think normally we've had the treasure artist choose the venue and then work together to pick a date, and then we worked around their schedule.
I think we ought to keep it flexible with treasure artist and work with, I mean, she may have an idea, she may, you know, ad hoc committee may have some fun times with this.
Well,
and
Trash and Fashion does happen in April, so.
that is true. Oh, man. That would be a great addition, wouldn't it, to kind of incorporate that. Wow. Oh. Yeah, fun. Deb?
I would also just, those that have children, I know spring break times, people take vacations and stuff, so maybe let that be known if you're not around in March or April, whenever spring break is this year.
So did you come up with something, Monique?
So we can move it for the August, we can move that to August 14th, which is that Thursday, if that works for everyone. Okay. I've notated that change for August.
Okay, I think do we need someone to move on this then?
Yes, just to confirm all of the dates for it with everyone, I have January 21st, April 15th, April 22nd, August 14th, which is a minor change, as well as November 18th. And I would need a motion in a second.
So moved.
A second? Anyone?
Second.
Commissioner Emerson? Yes. Commissioner Kershner?
Yes.
Commissioner Momsen?
Yes.
Commissioner Smull?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Wagner?
Yes.
Vice Chair Knudsen?
Yes.
Youth Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Chair Schlelein? Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Commissioners' reports 5.0. Anyone have comments or things they want to update people on?
Great new gallery on the square. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it just over. Yeah, it was tremendous stuff in there. I was just wandering around with my coffee on, like Magoo, on my way in there. It was really cool. And I told her I'd bring it up.
Thank you. Maybe you'll get a discount over there. That's good. Like that. Art Walk is coming first Thursday, and I missed the last one, but I heard it was a blast. So, and all kinds of things happening at Sebastiani Theater. So, lots of activity going on there. And Lauren, congratulations on all that you're doing with Songbird.
We'll be the restaurant.
Nice restaurant just opened, so that's cool. I met with Ron Wellender last week, well, a couple days ago. If you haven't seen it, the roundabout is going in south of town. It's ginormous. It's a roundabout on Highway 116. They call it the Big Bend, that curve there. And it's a Caltrans project, so it's a very difficult project because working with Caltrans is, no offense Caltrans if you're watching, but it's a little tedious. So I'm involved in that, and it's a gateway piece, and it's really going to define our community. It is scheduled tentatively to have. It'll be functioning before fall of 2026, but a giant piece of art will be going in the fall of 2026. And it should be an identifiable Sonoma Valley kind of thing, so it's very exciting right now. And the committee process is starting to be defined. There's a funding process, a funding committee, a selection committee that's starting to selecting a selecting committee. There's all kinds of excitement around it, and Susan Gorin has been deeply involved, and so it kind of sets the stage for us, I think, for our public art. So lots of good things happening. Also, I went up on Sunday. People from Loveland, Colorado, where I'm from, were coming out. The public art director from that city, who I worked with on the Visual and Performing Arts Committee for the city of Loveland, came to select sculpture at Paradise Ridge. So there was a sculpture that was for sale, 2 sculptures for sale there. They needed a roundabout sculpture, and that was, there are websites where you can look for roundabout sculptures. And so they found it at Paradise Ridge. And so I was reunited with people that I worked with in Loveland. So that was pretty cool and pretty fun, and got caught up on what Loveland's doing, including work-live housing with all kinds of artist spaces going up that are studio spaces and live spaces that are very alternative in an old beat factory, and Minneapolis has some programs that do a lot of workspaces all over the country, and there's all kinds of grants and funding. So that's kind of the latest going on in my old town. So that was cool too. So good things are happening out there. I know people are kind of in turmoil on other things, but for us, happy day.
And just
So,
a brief side note. I don't know if anybody else had noticed it, but was the Plein Air Festival like tremendous this year? Like, it was really something. We go wander through there every year, but I really thought it was just the quality of art, the number of folks, and the involvement, the attendance. Really well done. I thought that was a really special thing for the city of Sonoma. I thought that was a great little guy. So whoever's putting that together, good job.
I had just one more little note too, that our 2024 treasure artist Victor and his group will be performing at Lighting Up the Plaza this Saturday.
Yeah.
If it doesn't rain. And El Verano is singing. There's a choir that's going to be singing there.
The choir is the third grade students, and it's pretty cute.
Pretty cute. Tim Curley and Lauren Brenner are the conductors of that. So, yeah, some exciting things. So, with that, happy note.
Were there any other comments from the commission or anything anybody else wanted to say? No? Okay, well then my turn. Just a few notes. As it was mentioned earlier, it does look like Measure T, the apparently it's been too many hours. Half-cent sales tax that will go into the city's general fund, but a portion of it is looked to be used to put together a Parks and Recreation department in the city. It looks likely to pass, where that will not be certified for another week, so we always say likely to pass. But thank you to all of you if you had anything to do with it. We appreciate it. It'll open a lot of doors. Couple other notes. The city is, now that we have our treasure artist, we can change our focus to Alcalde. We are accepting nominations for Alcalde now, which is a little bit different process, no online form for that. But you can submit your nominations to the city manager, and they select that. The mayor usually selects the Alcalde early in the year. As we are talking about green links and roundabouts and all these things, there is an active transportation plan that is part of the larger county, Sonoma County Transportation Authority's transportation plan, which encompasses the entire county. I mean, it's a monster, but it has separate sections for each city. The city of Sonoma has our own active transportation plan within that, and they are accepting comments on that plan through the end of this month. It's available on our website. I highly recommend everybody take a look. There's lots of opportunities. There's very specific to our community. Specific intersections they're looking at and various things. So opportunity to comment in there. So I would highly recommend it if you are so moved. In addition, the general plan community workshop for land use is going to be coming up in January, at the end of January 30th to be precise, at the Vintage House from 5:30 to 9. That will be a really great opportunity for anybody interested in learning more, not just about the general process, but specifically about land use. Both the Planning Commission and City Council has considered land use changes, and so there will be a discussion of what those recommendations are going to be, and it's a really big part of the process. So will be an opportunity to have some, if you're interested at all in being part of that process, which I know some of you are. It'll be fun to see you there. It will also, I understand, be the same day as our council goal setting session, which will happen earlier that day. I believe it's set to take place at the lodge. It's not on the calendar yet because it was, I think, signed today. So while I'm talking dates, that's also a wonderful one. That is where the council will have their first conversations on how the new funding from the measure, where it will be allocated, and talking about how that will fit into the larger scheme of things. Of course, there is also a structural deficit that's being addressed, so some of that we'll all be talking about that at the time. As Connie mentioned, there's a holiday, and there's been mention of the holiday calendar right now is like packed. So the plaza lighting, weather dependent, this Saturday, the 23rd, they may or may not have been testing those lights. It was really wonderful to be in the office late today because it's a really special view from our windows. In addition, the sip and shop that the Vintners and Growers puts on, along with their lighted tractor parade, is coming back on the 30th. They are expanding the route, so it's actually going to be all the way around the plaza, so a lot more viewing opportunity, which will be wonderful. The Sonoma Art Walk, as Connie mentioned, is that Thursday on the 5th of December. Santa arrives in the plaza with the Star Optimus and all the hot chocolate, and on his fire truck on December 6th. And the Lights of Remembrance is on the 8th. That's the hospice tree that's lit every year. And then that's not all. There will be a couple more coming, but they're not yet on the calendar. They're being firmed up. So I understand Congregations Year Shalom is arranging something in our amphitheater, as well as, I believe, I'm not sure if it's music in place, but there are some other performance, I believe, being scheduled there. So those are coming. And then I would be a very bad emergency preparedness coordinator if I did not mention that we are about to head into a little bit of weather. So we are going to be under a flood watch and a wind advisory for the next couple of days. Our soils are thirsty, so it likely won't involve a lot of flooding, though maybe towards the end of the rain event we might start seeing a little bit of our stream overflow. But with the wind and the first rain of the year, that's when any weakened trees and branches and things tend to tip over or fall. So be careful out there. Look for loose trees when you're out on your hike on Saturday. So stay safe. But I do want to mention, if you haven't, it's always a good idea to have a few sandbags on hand. We have a sandbag filling station at Depot Park that's set up. Free sand, the bags to fill with sand are available at City Hall, limit 10 per person. And then you can fill them up, bring your own shovel. Don't forget that. I've seen people be very creative, but a shovel would be better to fill up your own sandbags. And there's lots of information how to do that safely and how to use them on our website. So on that really fun note, thank you all very much. And maybe Monique has something.
Deb, question?
What time exactly is the lighting begin?
I need to
On
look.
Saturday?
I want to say 6. We're going to look it up right now.
I just read 5:45. I thought maybe on the Visitors Bureau website, but
See how fast Monique can type.
I have a quick question too. Is that city goal setting meeting open to the public?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
It's open to the public. We had one last year. It's one of those that usually I'm not sure we've gotten a lot of attendance. Last year was very well attended, almost full packed. Yeah, it was great, and it's going to be very similar. So it was at the lodge, and there's an opportunity for public comment. It's a designated period, so when it comes out, because it is kind of an all-day thing, if you are specifically interested in giving public comments, they will be there for that. But it is absolutely open to the public. I can't remember. I believe it was recorded last year. My memory is not serving me well. Oh, starts at 5, but it does not say exactly when the lighting's happening. So yeah, it's usually around that. When it gets dark enough 5, they let people mill around a little before they light it up. Light the tree. Is that how we're gonna end? Okay.
Thank you. We had a packed agenda tonight, so thank you, and happy holidays, I guess, because we won't see it. Yeah? You want to do it on television or shall we adjourn and then call her? Shall we call
Completely
her?
your choice.
Let's call her on TV. So can we do a speakerphone? I can get my phone. Hi, Margaret. This is the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission. I'm Connie Schlelein, and we are all gathered here to say congratulations. You are the 2025 Treasure Artist of the Year for the City of Sonoma. Please give us a call back when you get this. We are super excited. It was a unanimous decision, and our commission is thrilled. Thank you.
Darn, she wasn't home.
Okay. She's probably, yeah. Too nervous.